Since I don't own the place. The female officer smiled at me. Still, it's your home. She struggled out of her bulky coat and looked for a place to put it. I pointed at the coat hooks by the door, and she hung it up next to mine. It took her a couple of seconds to unwrap a red and green scarf from around her neck. By the time she took off all her cold weather accoutrements, she was left wearing a red and black plaid flannel shirt over a green turtleneck, a pair of well-worn jeans, and her boots. If I hadn't seen her in her more official coat, I would have thought she was just a friendly neighbor stopping by. Except I didn't have any friends, and no one ever stopped by. The woman clapped her hands together as she surveyed the small space. It's a little chilly in here. She blew on her hands to warm them up. I shrugged. It always is. Can't seem to get the heat to work right. Nutty didn't mind the colder environment since his furry coat kept him warm enough, and I'd learned to wear as many layers as possible. Since the squirrel and I were given the free accommodations to live in, who was I to complain? But you're a witch. Surely you could cast a temperature spell, the officer challenged. I scoffed and shook my head. Guess you didn't read my entire file. My magic is broken, I admitted to myself, unable to say the words out loud. Oh, I read the file on Aurora Hart just fine. The officer walked around the small living room, checking out the bare furnishings. But I figure it only tells a small part of your story. I want to know more about you, Rory. I narrowed my eyes at the stranger. Instead of playing the tough authority figure, wanting to scare me straight, she chose to try and be my friend. Neither tactic ever worked, so I chose to give her as little as possible and kept my mouth shut. The officer stopped her snooping and stood in front of the cold fireplace. You should at least be able to cast a warming fire, she challenged. Sure. I made my way over to her, grabbed the nearby box of matches, and struck one, throwing the flame into the pile of logs. A plume of smoke wavered above the wood until the fire crackled to life. There! The officer watched me as I set the box of matches on the mantel. You don't trust yourself, she stated. If you've read my file, then you don't have to go back too far to find out why, I said, staring at the dancing flames in the fireplace to keep the officer from seeing my frustrations. You're here to assign me to my third job, not try to fix my life, Officer Noel, she finished in a soft voice. She reached out and touched my arm. You've only been here for 2 weeks. It may take longer to find the right fit for you, but I promise we'll do our best. Her kindness melted some of my icy shield, and a little hope leaked into my chest. Unable to handle being disappointed yet again, I yanked out of the woman's hold. Whatever, I mumbled. Instead of berating me for my insolence, the officer sighed. I get why trust doesn't come easy for you, but if you would just give this place a chance, maybe you could stop running long enough to discover who you are and what you can do. She flourished her hands in the air, and the scent of pine trees, smoke, and a hint of cinnamon whirled around us. The temperature of the room increased by a few degrees, and I warmed up enough to unzip my hoodie. Neat trick, I admitted. I can teach you if you want, she offered. It shouldn't be that hard for you to master since you possess fire magic. I snorted. You make it sound so simple. And yet we both know it's not, because that's not my only dominant power. Taking a big risk, I held out my right hand and concentrated. Water pooled in my palm until I had enough. With great effort, I forced the liquid into a familiar shape until my magic froze it into its form. A key. Interesting choice, Officer Noel said. It's the only thing I ever learned enough to control, thanks to the one witch who took me in for a little while as I was growing up. You can imagine all the uses for keys he made me create. The fog of self-loathing and doubt that followed me since that period of my life filled me to the brim. But he dumped me when my fire magic misfired and set off an alarm that got us caught. First and only time I was glad my powers didn't work just right. Instead of telling me how worthless I was, or how much I belonged behind bars, the officer moved closer to me. Her eyes flashed so light blue that they reminded me of the ice in my hand. Our past doesn't have to dictate our future. Sure, you've been in trouble before. I hope in holiday...